The Devils' bottom six is spread thin once again because Erik Haula is going to miss some time due to an ankle injury. I know a lot of people have been bashing Haula on his season, but let's look at it from a different perspective. We have a lot to break down in today's episode of Locked On Devils. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Scores! Oh, Stevens stepped up, nailed it. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here at the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play announcer, Devils are pucks and pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. At the time of this recording, the New Jersey Devils have a travel day, so let's use today's episode to catch up on the news. In the first segment, we're going to talk about Erik Haula and his injury circumstance, but not only that, we will assess his season up to this point, and then in the second segment, we're going to revisit a topic that I discussed a few weeks ago, which is the trade deadline and how the Devils should approach it, because a lot of people, including myself, have been saying that the bottom six desperately needs to improve in terms of point production. Then in the third and final segment, I want to talk about a goalie that's sort of forgotten about. He was selected 49th overall in last year's draft. It is Mikhail Yegorov from the Omaha Lancers. He is committed to play at Boston University. As some of you might know, I was at the draft, and it was definitely a busy few days for the Devils because they selected Anton Salayev with their 10th overall pick, and free agency was fast approaching. There was a lot of speculation that the Devils were going to be big-time buyers. A lot of people were saying that they were going to get Brett Pesce and a few other assets, and Alexander Holtz and Akira Schmid were dealt away for the services of Paul Cotter. But I want to give some credit to Yegorov because he is actually ranked number one in terms of North American goalies, and he was an underrated selection for the Devils organization. And I want to give you guys an update as to how his season has been going with the Lancers. All right, let's talk about Erik Haula. In the words of Sheldon Keefe, prior to the Seattle Kraken game, he said that Haula is slated to miss a few weeks due to a sprained ankle. This season, Haula has appeared in 42 games. He has 5 goals, 6 assists for a grand total of 11 points. He also has 256 face-off wins, which ranks second on the team, and he has 67 hits, 6th on the team. Now, a lot of people, including myself, have been rather hard on the Devils' bottom six because, like I said, in terms of point production, it's been lackadaisical. But to give credit, Paul Cotter has 3 goals in his previous 5 games. It seems like Dawson Mercer is starting to rack up more points consistently. We saw it in the Kraken game. He walked away with a multi-point outing. But the other assets surrounding them, like Justin Dowling, Curtis Lazar, I know he's coming back from injury, but he's not going to rack up the points. Nathan Bastian, Tomas Tatar. When it comes to just recording a point, it's very inconsistent, and sometimes they go long stretches without registering a point, and Haula's no exception. Now, to give my assessment on Haula's season, I'd say he's had a rough go of it compared to last year. He appeared in 76 games. He had 16 goals, 19 assists for a grand total of 35 points. And I think the reason why people are a little hard on Haula this time around is just because he got off to an electrifying start because he began the season paired alongside Paul Cotter, Stefan Noesen. At one point, all 3 of them were point-per-game players, but obviously we knew that wasn't going to last. But ever since then, Paul Cotter, Erik Haula, little inconsistent when it comes to getting points. Stefan Noesen He's been a great addition on the Nico Hischier and Timo Meier line. So Stefan Noesen obviously has found his role rather nicely. Huge callus on the power play, great net front presence. But I know a lot of people want to see Erik Haula get more points, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I'm just going to say that Erik Haula is doing his job for the most part, but I think you have to look at some of his line mates. Here's my theory. Last season, Erik Haula was paired alongside Jack Hughes, and that was the same circumstance during the 2022-2023 season, because a lot of people were wondering, why is Erik Haula not a healthy scratch? Well, head coach at the time, Lindy Ruff, told us, the media, that the reason why Erik Haula was never scratched was because the Devils got more puck possession when Haula was out there. Lindy was challenging the media and also the fan base to look at Haula from a different perspective, because to begin his tenure with the Devils, he'll even admit to this, he had a tough go at it because points were tough to come by then. He even said during his exit interview that he couldn't net anything, even if there was no goalie in between the pipes. He jokingly said that, but he started to get it going as the season progressed, and obviously he played a huge role in the first series against the Rangers. But digressing a little bit, Lindy Ruff said that Haula was good in the face-off department. He worked the corners. He wasn't afraid to play physical, and that sort of took the pressure off of Jack Hughes' shoulders. So that way, Jack didn't have to focus on face-offs or having to play a little more physical. Erik Haula sort of carries that burden. And since he won a decent amount of face-offs, the Devils get more possession when he's out there. And I think the same can be said this time around, because like I said, he is second in face-off wins, and he's also racking up the hits. So you know that he's still winning face-offs, he's still being physical, but similar to what a lot of people have been saying, the bottom six just really isn't up to par, and Erik Haula obviously isn't paired alongside Jack Hughes. So I don't think you're able to see his true impact just because Jack Hughes isn't by his side. And I think a good example would be Andre Palat, because as we all know, Andre Palat, he is like the whipping boy for the Devils fan base, because people love to rip on Andre Palat, say he's not worth this, he's not worth that. But to some of those people's credit, Andre Palat, he was struggling to register even one single point to kick off the year. But a few games into the season, Sheldon Keefe paired Andre Palat alongside Jesper Bratt and Jack Hughes. And as a result, Andre Palat, while not consistently, was racking up more points. And he was also creating more possession for Jesper Bratt and Jack Hughes. He was sort of doing what Erik Haula has done the past couple seasons. But now, since Erik Haula is on the bottom six, he doesn't have Jack Hughes by his side, it's kind of hard to see the hard work he is actually doing. So once again, I'm playing devil's advocate here. Take it how you want to take it, but I understand Haula's point production, similar to a lot of his other bottom six teammates, isn't really up to par, but he's still a vital piece on this roster. He does need to up the points production a little bit, and I hope he does that when he comes back from injury. And this also goes a long way. Haula is very important in the locker room. Every time I enter the locker room, he's cracking jokes. He's a great guy to be around. His teammates seem to love him. And Jack Hughes even said this a couple years ago, that Erik Haula is a good vocal leader, but he can back it up when he's out there on the rink. So I'm just saying, go a little easy on Erik Haula. Hopefully the points do start to rack up a little bit as the season progresses and when he comes back from injury. But the point I'm just trying to make is that his role is a little bit different, and sometimes that can happen when you have a stacked roster, because Last season, the Devils were dealing with injuries, so it was kind of easy to plug Haula in certain circumstances. But this time around, he's got to work with what he's being given, which isn't a lot, but he's still doing what he's done the past few seasons. So take it a little easy on him. All right. We're going to talk about the bottom six in general because I do think they need a bona fide score on that bottom six, and they should look at the trade market, but it's easier said than done. What do I mean by that? Well, we'll talk about that momentarily, but before we continue, let me tell you guys about FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel to look at the odds and join today. Get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Okay, you're probably thinking to yourself, why did I decide to defend Erik Haula in the first segment? Well, I was on social media, like I always am, and I saw some trade scenarios bringing up Erik Haula's name so that way the Devils could get this certain player. And I put out on social media that for this season, Erik Haula has a no trade clause. Now, that will change to a modified no trade clause come next season, but most likely, Erik Haula will leave the Devils when Erik Haula wants to leave the Devils because for this season, he has a no trade clause, and I'm sure he doesn't want to go anywhere. But to defend some of the Devils' discourse, I know what they're trying to do. The Devils need to bolster their bottom six a little bit, and Erik Haula could be serviceable because he's been dealt around a lot in his career. He's played for the Minnesota Wild, Vegas Golden Knights, Carolina Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, Nashville Predators, Boston Bruins, and obviously now he's here in New Jersey. And he's only missed the playoffs twice in his career. Last season, and then he missed it in 2019 while he was with Vegas, but Vegas still made the playoffs. He personally missed it due to injury. Anyway, digressing a little bit, the point I'm just trying to make is that I'm sure Erik Haula could be serviceable for a perennial playoff team like the Devils are right now, but he's not going anywhere. That's just plain and simple. But once again, I know what people are trying to do. The Devils do need a change on their bottom six because entering the Seattle Kraken matchup, you had Paul Cotter. He had appeared in 42 games up to that point, 15 points. Justin Dowling, 25 game appearances, 3 points. Dawson Mercer, 42 games, 19 points. Tatar, 37 games, 9 points. Lazar, 17 games, obviously coming back from injury, 2 points. Bastian, 24 games, 5 points. Once again, entering the matchup against the Kraken. After the game concluded, Cotter, he had a goal. Mercer had a goal and an assist. But the sentiment does not change. The Devils need to improve on their bottom six a little bit. And this is where the Devils might run into a problem come the trade deadline because here are some players with no movement clauses. Timo Meier, Jesper Bratt, Andre Palat, Dougie Hamilton, Jacob Markstrom. Players with a no trade clause, Erik Haula, Brett Pesce, Brendan Dillon. Players with a modified no trade clause, Nico Hischier, Jonas Siegenthaler, Stefan Nason, Jake Allen. Players on their entry-level contracts, Luke Hughes, Shimon Nemitz. The Devils are running out of assets to deal away in order to improve their roster. That's the point I'm just trying to make, which is who do you trade away when you want a big name player or a player that you know can contribute? Because I saw some people say the Devils should go for Elias Pettersson or JT Miller because there's some drama happening up in Vancouver. I don't know how that can work financially. Keep in mind, Luke Hughes will need a new deal at the conclusion of this season, final year of his entry-level contract, and the Devils have some lengthy contracts on their roster already. And I think another underrated player that we need to talk about is Jonathan Kovacevic. What would his new contract look like? Because he has surpassed expectations. And I'm sure the Devils are going to have to pay a pretty penny if they want to keep him on the roster. My thing is, like, when it comes to being a playoff team, these are some of the issues you run into when you're trying to improve your roster. Who are you willing to send away? Because I saw some people say, like, are you willing to include Shimon Nemeth, Seamus Casey, Lenny Haminaho, some of those big name prospects in trade circumstances? And my answer is, like, I really don't know. I don't think that's going to be worth it in the end, because you don't want to gut your minor league system, because you might need those players in the near future. You never know. And after this past offseason, the Devils are kind of running a little low on tradable assets. Alexander Holtz is a good example. His name was always brought up in trade rumors. Kevin Ball, Akira Schmid, they're no longer in the organization. So my thing is, like, I still do believe that the Devils need to look at the trade market to see who you can get to help bolster the bottom six, because similar to what Tom Fitzgerald said at a recent press conference, you can't just rely on your top six and your power play to do a boatload of the scoring. Your depth assets also need to contribute, and that can become crucial come playoff time, because you have to beat that same team 4 times out of 7. That's why there's a difference between being a regular season team and a playoff team. So the Devils are trying to be contenders. And in my heart to heart, I do believe they can become legitimate title contenders. I think they're missing a piece in order to really push them over the edge, if that makes sense. So they definitely should look at the trade market, see who's available. But I think in this case, you have to look at underrated assets and see who might be underappreciated, who might be falling underneath other teams' radars. Because when it comes to some of the big name players I just listed in Vancouver, yes, they have their respective issues. I think either Pedersen or Miller were trying to debunk the rumors, but to no avail. Elliot Freeman said, like, the Canucks are searching to trade one or both of them away. I'll probably do a future episode on that matter, but for the time being, it's just like, I don't know if that could work out financially, and I'm sure the Canucks are going to demand for a few decent sized players, and I don't think the Devils can provide that. I think the only big tradable asset that is currently on the roster at the NHL level is Dawson Mercer. But to Mercer's credit, he's one of the better bottom 6 contributors, because if I had to pick one player to try to get me a point on the bottom 6, it's definitely going to be Dawson Mercer. So that's just something to keep an eye out for, and also to be cognizant of, which is the Devils. I do think they're going to make a move, but is it going to be a splashy move? Is it going to be like a game-changing move? I don't really think so. But even then, I don't think you need to break the bank for a certain player. But we'll see what happens, and I'll probably do an episode covering the Vancouver situation in the near future. But for the time being, before we talk about an underrated Devils prospect, let me tell you guys about Game Time. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, comedy, and more. One of my favorite memories was attending a few concerts with my brother in the past. Now Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I've actually used Game Time before to purchase myself some MLB and NBA tickets in the past. Had a great time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time, everybody. All right, let's talk about a Devils prospect who is really good, but very underrated. And that is Mikhail Yegorov from the Omaha Lancers. Like I said, to open up this show, he was selected 49th overall in the second round by the Devils. Remember, they traded away John Marino to get that draft pick from Utah because originally the Devils did not own a second round pick. And the day before, they selected Anton Salayev, who is a really good player out of Russia, one of the best skaters in terms of defensemen. And Yegorov deserves some credit as well because he was ranked the number one goalie in North America. Now, why am I talking about Yegorov this time around? Well, he actually had a big accomplishment recently for the Lancers. In their New Year's Eve game against Lincoln, he recorded 66 saves. According to the Lancers play-by-play announcer, Frank Zarofsky, he put this out on social media and he said, Yegorov is an elite USHL goaltender. The Devils may have an heir to Martin Brodeur on their hands. Look out, Terrier Hockey and Hockey East, because Yegorov is committed to play at Boston University under former Devil Jay Pandolfo. And this season for the Lancers, a lot of people might overlook Yegorov and what his capabilities are because he has appeared in 18 games. He has a record of 3-12-2. He has a goals against average of 3.26, but he has a 909 save percentage. And he has faced 574 shots. Last season, he appeared in 43 games. He had a record of 825-3, and he had a goals against average of 3.86, a save percentage of 892, and faced 1,262 shots. That is why he is ranked the best goalie in North America amongst prospects. I think Devils fans should keep an eye out for Yegorov and what his ceiling might be. Now, can he become the next Martin Brodeur? That's a tall order. I won't put it past him, but that is certainly a tall order because I've said it on this show before that I believe Martin Brodeur is the greatest goalie to ever play this game. But Yegorov is from Russia. We've seen a decent amount of players hail from Russia and have good careers in between the pipes, including Andrei Vasilevsky, Sergei Bobrovsky, and Igor Shesterkin. And I think Yegorov can definitely follow in their footsteps. I've listened to a few of his interviews, and he seems rather confident in his playing abilities because he really believes in the development of Russian players. He says that they're tough as nails, and I love his confidence. We'll see what happens, but I'm going to be following Yegorov's story a lot more closely because I think he deserves a lot more credit, and I think Devils fans should be excited for him. So keep tabs on him in the USHL, playing for the Omaha Lancers, committed to play at Boston University. But let me know your thoughts on Erik Haula, his season up to this point, and what the Devils should do at the trade deadline. Still a ways away, but it's never too early to talk silly season. In fact, it's never a bad time to talk about silly season. But leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on podcast streaming service. Hit me up on my personal X Page app at TreyMatt4 or the show's X Page app at Locked On Devils. As for today's episode, that's all the time I have for you. Continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day in New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys next episode. Thanks for listening once again.